Today is November 4th, and it is a patch day for Black Ops 6, and we have seen one of our first balance patches for the game, and I'm going to be honest with you, I am not terribly excited about it. They did the normal thing, which is 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and so we're kind of in a situation where it might have swung a little bit too far in one direction than the other. So let's go ahead and get into what the patch notes essentially were today. First, they added Nuketown into private matches, and they've gone through and add stability options, hopefully, for the way that the game works, so that way that the game is working well and not crashing all the time. There was some good points inside of the patch notes. They did nerf the recon specialist, so it went from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, and they said there's more nerfs coming to the recon specialist overall, so you'll get a little less time of getting walled. They did remove the ability to one-shot the slugs to the chest for both of the shotguns, so you no longer have to deal with that. And apparently it still is kind of aimbotting a little bit. If you haven't seen that video, obviously I have that one linked at the end. They did nerf the overall duration of getting tactical flashbanged, so at least you're not blind forever. And they did some more changes here and there, but one of the most problematic ones outside of the weapon changes that we'll get into in a second is they nerfed XP gains on all of the small game modes. They did buff the rest of them, so there is a bit of a hope for those of you who don't like running the tightest of tight fights all the time. But for anybody that has been running the face-off playlist, the XP has been nerfed on that because obviously we were leveling too fast or something. I don't know. But the part that I'm going to talk to you the most about is the big change to ARs and SMGs. SMGs have had all of their ranges increased, so meaning that their damage drop-off is going to be a lot further out than it was before, which is great. I think that's a good choice. The SMGs were in a good spot, but not in a great spot, and considering that a lot of the maps are a little open, while some of the maps are obviously very tight, like the map I'm dropping in right now on Stakeout, the SMGs were really in a so-so place where when you were fighting up close, they were obviously the best option, but when you were fighting at a even close to mid-range, most of them fell off unless you're looking, I'm looking at you, Tonto. That thing is absolutely broken, so yeah, we're not going to talk too much about the Tonto. The Tonto's a problem. But a lot of the SMGs, especially ones like the KSV, were really dropping off hard and not really getting any sort of reliable fights when it got to mid-range. So I think overall the buff to a few of them is good. The problem here now is they also turned around and nerfed all of the ARs, including even removing mid-range options, well, the mid-range drop-off that the AK had. So the AK obviously is one of the stronger ones, and it could have used a little bit of a nerf, which is fine, and the XM4. But most of the ARs are really only kind of decent at mid-range. And really don't have the TTK to keep up with any of the SMGs. Well, they went through and they nerfed all the headshot damages for the ARs. They went through and they nerfed all the ranges for the ARs. They removed some mid-ranges, like for the AK. And so they've essentially enough dropped the ARs into a non-competing situation again. Now, obviously, if you are the better player, you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to get some stuff done with the ARs. But if you were an average player versus another average SMG player, SMGs are about to be dominating at all ranges, and that's not a good thing. Before, the SMGs both had a little bit of room to compete, but now that's really just not the case unless you're running the AS-Val or the AK. The XM4 is still doing pretty good for itself, so I guess I won't count it out completely. But when you start getting into the slower rate of fire ones like the Model L, the GP, and the AIMs and stuff, their ability to compete in some of these close quarters maps like I'm doing right now. This is Stakeout, by the way, in the face-off game mode. I'm over here trying to get some kills with my knife while I talk to you guys. But yeah, the ARs are no longer going to be able to compete with the SMG, especially at the SMG's mid-range on these close quarter maps. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yes, SMGs are supposed to be stronger options on these close quarter maps, for sure. But after the nerf to the ARs, they're pretty much the best option on almost all the maps now, especially when you start getting into the Tonto, which for some reason fires one of the smallest bullets in use by anybody, and yet still has the fastest, least number of bullets to kill version of TTKs that we have right now, which is not great. It makes for a very, very weird feeling time for anybody that understands how gun works. Now, of course, this is a video game, so we aren't looking for realism. Realism is not our thing. We're looking to play a game that goes pew pew bang bang and have a good time. But unfortunately enough, this change to the weapons is going to make the AR suffer a lot. And then on the other side, whenever we start getting into the Warzone bit of things, you're going to suffer a lot more because the AR is losing their damage range a lot faster. It means that the weapons that were already suffering in the future AR patch, as long as the weapons stay similar to what they are right now when it goes over to Warzone, are going to suffer even harder. Right now, all of the ARs are, if they move the HP up to 300, all the ARs are sitting far below all of the other weapons currently in Warzone, meaning without a significant rebalance to either the weapons we have in Warzone right now, or without a significant rebalance to the way the weapons work inside of Black Ops right now, you're not going to be able to use any of these Black Ops weapons for the Warzone integration on November 14th. And again, the AR balance to that made that significantly worse. Now, I'm hoping that isn't going to be the case when it gets to Warzone, but as of right now, for inside of Black Ops, the ARs don't feel very good. A lot of them don't feel very good. And today, I was actively working on my diamond camos for my ARs when this patch came in. And so it was a instant night and day difference between my weapon being effective and then being no longer anywhere near effective as it was. And I think that realistically, Call of Duty should have probably went in and buffed the SMGs and then went back behind and nerfed the ARs if they thought it was still an issue. But as of right now, the blanket buff to SMGs comboed with the blanket nerf to ARs makes for a really disconnected combat pattern, especially when you start dealing with the grind maps that people are currently playing as they're trying to level up their weapons, get them max, get their levels max, get through prestiges, hoping to do the camo challenges. Right now is the worst the ARs have felt. Now, again, weapons like the AK, the AS-Val, and the XN4 all feel pretty decent still, especially when you get to the mid-range. But when you're looking at the aims, the GPR, the model, and the Goblin, all of these did not need to get hit. All of these were already only average and were really only good for those mid-range fights. And now with this, they don't really even have a bit of a chance to even fight back when you start getting to the close quarter fights. And we run into the very probably unintended consequence of this, which is making the LMGs that much more better of a choice. The overall idea that this is an omni-movement game and people are supposed to be moving and really fast, and so you have a fast TDK to kind of offset all the movement people have, the LMGs completely shut that down. The LMGs kill very fast as it is already. They now have better range than the ARs. They have bigger mags than the ARs. They have very similar movement speeds still. The only thing they really suffer at is reload speed. And honestly, if you're sitting back far enough, most of the players aren't going to get to you before your bullets anyways on the LMGs. So realistically, all this balance patch did was make the SMGs a lot better, make the LMGs even better of a choice for the ARs. And the ARs, of course, fell off into their little nuanced sections on the side. So now we're hoping that either A, it's because I'm having to relearn the entire game and this isn't nearly as bad as I think it is, or B, we've just put our ARs into a situation where they don't really feel great. You know, they just don't really feel great. And that's not a good thing, especially with how well this game has been pretty decently received as it's come out. This has been the largest number of players playing a Call of Duty game on launch. And when they dropped Nuketown, the numbers went even higher for their most number of players played on Steam in one go. So it's not that the game is in a bad spot. Obviously, the maps are the worst part of the game. So we're not really even concerned specifically about the maps because new maps are coming out and, you know, there will be more opportunities for us to all get to play different maps, or when it gets moved over into Warzone, it'll be, you know, the Warzone experience with it as well. But most of all, I don't understand why they would do such broad, untested, unwarranted nerfs across one entire board when realistically the SMGs are the only part that really need this buff. And I wouldn't even say that all the SMGs need buffed. The C9 still does really well for itself at range. The Tonto does really well for itself at range. The Jackal still was doing pretty well for itself at range. It was realistically just, for me, the Compact and the KSV were the ones that were really suffering on those like mid-range combat fights. I feel like this was a complete and utter knee-jerk reaction to the way that the ARs and SMGs are balanced. And in a world where we still have these shotguns that are absolutely just one-pumping at 9 meters, I don't think the SMGs were the problem here, guys. Now, obviously, I want to see how you all feel about it. Once you get playing in the game a little bit, let me know how you're feeling about the balance changes. I'd love to hear if I'm just losing my mind. Maybe I'm just an old head that just can't keep up with these new kids. I don't know. But hopefully it's not as bad as I'm thinking. But thank y'all for checking out the video. As more patches come out and more things change, I will keep you up to date. And I look forward to getting you the best and the brightest when Warzone hits November 14th with the Black Ops integration. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, peace.